Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So today is another rainy Tuesday. I don't know what's going on with the weather, but apparently I am just meant to create on Tuesdays and the weather is cooperating with that. So I have myself hunkered in here and I have a bajillion ideas that I want to talk about today. But we're going to rein it in because, well, I have been just very busy, not busy, but like the downloads are coming hot and heavy. And it tends to happen when I'm in water. I get very activated in water, and so I swam laps this morning. And so the energy that was coming out of my lane was probably pretty intense for the rest of the swimmers because it was like, ooh, download, ooh, information, ooh, I love that, ooh, I love that. It was a lot, and I was just a little annoyed that I couldn't write it all down at that moment. And so I gave myself some space today to be able to get some more of this information out onto paper. I love paper and pen so very much. If you're watching the YouTube, you see me swinging around my pen here. I love paper and pen. It just connects better than when I'm typing. Now I can type and be really inspired as well. There's just something about the brainstorming process for me that works better with paper and pen. So today, I say all of that because today we're going to talk about why we can't seem to do the thing that we know we should do. I'm going to need everybody to raise their hands because we're all guilty of this at one time or another in our lives where we're like, yeah, we probably shouldn't eat that cookie, but we're going to anyways. Or we should probably eat those veggies instead of that cake, but we're not going to. Or we should probably get up and exercise today, but we're not going to, right? There is this constant we should do this, and yet we choose not to. And there's several reasons why we do this. Probably more than several, but we're going to touch on a couple of them today. A couple that have personally plagued me, right? Like, why aren't we doing the thing we know that we're supposed to do that will actually get us to where we want to go, right? In terms of weight loss, why are we not eating the vegetables when we know it's actually going to help us lose weight in the long term? And here's the thing. Here's the number one reason for me, right? The number one reason for me that I can trip over not doing the thing that I think I should do is because, and there's a chance I might get emotional in this part because I didn't know that this is where it was going, but this is where it's going. Okay, give me a second. Yep. Okay. So for me, the number one reason why I don't do the thing that I know will help me get to the point that I want to get to is because I actually have this core belief that I need to be an underachiever. Which is crazy to say when I tell you that I'm a mentor for high performers. And again, was not prepared for this to come out today, but we're going to keep going. Okay, so if I get emotional, just hang with me. So I remember as a child, my mother had signed my sister and I up for acting classes, modeling classes, whatever it was. It was a John Robert Powers, right, in Central Mass. And we had these like etiquette classes where it was like, how do you set the table? How do you sit properly? It kind of felt like finishing school, right? Like back in the day for girls. But nevertheless, it was an acting and modeling agency. And I remember my sister and I, my immediate older sister and I, we auditioned for a commercial. Now, this is how I recall it in my mind. I don't know how anyone else recalls this, but this is just how I remember it. So we auditioned for this commercial, and I was this bright little bubbly thing. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I was just having fun. It was a toy. I don't even remember what the toy was, but we were auditioning to be in a commercial for this toy. And I remember my mother pulling me aside after this, a few days later, whatever. And she had apparently heard back about the commercial. And the company had decided to offer me the position for the commercial, but not my sister. And so my mother said to me, they offered you the commercial, you're not going to take it. It will make your sister feel bad. And it was in that moment that I turned my light off, essentially. It was in that moment that I didn't want to shine too bright to make somebody else feel bad, and I became this perpetual underachiever, where it was like I could achieve things, but not so much that it made other people feel bad. And so I hung out in this mediocre space for a long time. I was an okay student. I was an average athlete. I wasn't the greatest, but I wasn't the worst. I was like third, fourth, fifth place in these kinds of things. And this is actually very new information to me. There was a book that I was reading recently where this information came through in great clarity. And so I put on this overachiever mask, right? Where it was like, oh no, I'm going to try to do all of the things to negate this feeling of being an underachiever. And so that is the number one reason why I do not do the things I know will get me to the place I want to actually be at, is because I have this deep-rooted belief that if I shine bright, it makes other people feel bad about themselves. And I don't want that, right? Now, I've done a lot of work around this, spent a lot of time, but it's still pretty raw. And again, wasn't really prepared for that to come out today. So this feeling that if you shine too brightly, it makes other people feel bad. That's not really our problem, right? Because when you shine, when you do, and I know this to be true, and I'm working on correcting that belief, but I know this to be true. When I show up in my greatest light, it gives people permission to show up in theirs. Yes, it makes some people feel bad. Of course, it just is, right? But it gives so many other people permission to show up and be their own light, and to shine brighter, and to do the thing that they are meant to do on this planet. But that is the number one reason that I stopped myself, because that belief, when I was 8 years old, became a core belief, whatever, 8 or 9 years old, became a core belief, and I didn't want other people to feel bad about themselves. So I felt bad about myself instead, right? Like I took it on. Okay, so that's one. The fear of being too much, essentially. That's what we'll call that. So that's number one. The number one for me, again, this is for me. These are just a bunch of different reasons why. So another reason why we don't do the thing that we know we should do, right? I've lost now. that was such a big one. And I'm like, I don't know that the rest of these even matter. So we overthink it. Number two. Okay. So the second reason here that we don't do the thing that we think we should do, or that we know will get us to the place that we want to go, right? So again, back to this weight loss issue. You choose not to eat the vegetables and the cake instead, even though you know the vegetables are actually going to help you get where you want to go, right? And we overthink it. Does it really matter if I have this cake? No, it doesn't really matter, right? Just have the cake, enjoy it. You've been good all week, right? Like, these are the justifications we give ourselves. You've been good all week. You're fine. You don't have to work out today. You don't have to go kick the soccer ball today, right? You've been good all week. You've done all these other things. You don't need to do it, right? We overthink it. We're like, well, does this one thing really have such a big impact on the whole picture, right? So we're like, we don't really need to do it, right? We talk ourselves out of it, essentially, right? So we overthink it enough that we can justify our way out of the change, okay? Which leads me to number 3 here. Change is scary. To some people. I will add that caveat. So some people are terrified of change, right? Change is inevitable, though. Things are going to be constantly changing. The weather has changed 3 different times since I sat here to start doing some work today. It was sunny, it was cloudy, and now it's rainy, right? So change is a constant thing, and yet we dig our feet in and we're like, no, I don't want to do the different thing. I don't want to do the different thing, even though I know it's going to help me get to where I want to go, because it comes back to this other thing of, are we going to be loved if we're all of us? If we show up fully, 100% unapologetically in this world, will people still love us? Yes. Turns out they do. And maybe you're thinking, yeah, but Steph, there's nobody that knows me 100% and still loves me. God does. All right, Steph, but no person. Well, that's because you haven't let somebody love you, because you're struggling with loving yourself. So start there and then let's go on, right? So when it comes to not doing the thing that we know will get us the results that we want, right? AKA procrastination. How do we get around this? What can we do differently? How do we show up differently so that we can do the things that are actually going to get us to where we want to go, right? So prime example, I know that my podcast and my YouTube are going to be the traffic sources. I can speak today. The traffic sources in which clients will come to me. I know, because I show up authentic in these spaces. Now, I could sit here and talk myself out of this podcast and the YouTube. I could say, you know what? I'm not really feeling it today. It doesn't really matter in the long run. It'll be fine if I skip today. However, I want to show up in integrity, and I have to continue to learn to trust myself. So if I say that I have a podcast that comes out every Monday and Thursday, and I choose to not show up and record my podcasts on Monday or on Tuesdays so that they can go live on Mondays and Thursdays, right? Then I am diluting my trust in myself, but I'm also diluting the trust of my audience. How are they going to trust me as a coach if I can't even show up for myself? Yeah, let that sit for a second. How is someone else going to trust you if you can't even show up for yourself? I see it a lot. You show up for everybody else except yourself. And that doesn't help. That just leads to resentment, right? It's just not serving anybody. So for me, when I am changing something, because again, change is inevitable, I start really, 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 really small. Really small, like super simple. That's going to take me like 60 seconds a day, kind of a small thing. Because it can feel difficult to incorporate a new thing into our life. So if you know that your presence on social media is paramount to you receiving clients, but you don't ever post, who are you helping? You're letting your fear win, right? So start super small. Maybe you just share an Instagram story. Don't overthink it, just do it, right? That's where that Nike logo came in. Don't overthink it, just do it. And eventually the fear and the conversations around doing those things are going to get less and less and less because it becomes more habitual, right? I have to coach clients through this when they're doing Facebook Lives, right? When they're sharing things on video. A lot of people hate doing the audio and the video. They can share a picture all day long. They hate this part. And so I tell them to start small. Maybe they just start in their own little Facebook group where it's just them. That's fine. You're doing it. You're getting in the habit. It's going to feel less and less comfortable, less and less uncomfortable rather, right? So when it comes to, again, not doing, I wrote it down here, right? When we can't do the things that we know will get us the results that we want, you've got to look at, one, do you believe that the result that you want is even possible? I talk about beliefs here a lot because they are vital, is the best word. Probably not even a legitimate, like your belief in what you believe is possible is vital to you creating that. Okay? So if you're not doing something that you know will get you the result that you want, do you believe that the result is actually possible? Let's look at that. Okay? Once you're there, then figure out, okay, so what's stopping me? How am I setting myself up for failure on this one, right? So again, back to the weight loss thing. If you don't believe you can actually lose weight by eating vegetables, you're not going to eat vegetables. But if you believe that eating more vegetables is going to help you, how can you make it easier to eat more vegetables? Make them readily available. You're going to have to do a little bit of meal planning. Potentially, right? So, is it possible? How can you make it easy? And then the third thing here is give yourself a whole bunch of grace. You're gonna screw it up at first. You're not gonna have a perfect vegetable eating week. You're not gonna have a perfect week of posting on social media. If you say, you know what, I am going to start posting on social media. I'm going to, this was my thing with TikTok. It was like, oh, well, you have to post like 17 pieces of content on TikTok every day. And I was like, no part of me wants to post on TikTok 17 times a day. All right, so maybe TikTok's not the thing for me. Okay, cool. I can do a podcast. I can do a YouTube, and those can be, things that I do twice a week, and that works really well for me. So again, is the thing that you want achievable? Do you believe it's achievable, rather? It is achievable. It's whether or not you believe it's achievable, okay? And then what are your roadblocks here? What's stopping you? What's getting in your way? Make it easy to do it. I talk about this previous episode, making success easy, right? Make it easy. And then the third one here is don't overdo it, right? Give yourself the space to let this new thing into your life. You don't need to go balls to the wall right out of the gate. But that's what some people do, and it derails them. So maybe you just post on social media once a week. Maybe you just cut out one dessert a week, right? Make it manageable. Okay, so thank you for sticking with me. If you've made it this far, thank you for giving me the space to get a little bit emotional there with some silence on the line as I was processing what was going to come through. And if you do have any questions about working with me, I do have spots available for private clients this month. And I am so excited about it because it is going to be life-changing. So if you have questions about working with me, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can always head over to my website, stephaniesnyderphd.com, or you can check me out on Instagram at stephaniesnyderphd as well. And if you do have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to connect with you. And if you want to share this, if this video has spoken to you in any way and you want to share it on social media, I would greatly appreciate that. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, also appreciate that as well. So I'm sending you so much love. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.